Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hifsa Haroon-Iqbal. I'm a Deputy Lieutenant for Staffordshire, amongst many other things. And this is my story, my journey through life, and why I think education, however you get it, whenever the opportunity presents itself, is important for everyone.
Hifsa is a civil servant, as well as being a supporter and campaigner for a number of organisations and charities. Though based now in Staffordshire, her story begins in Pakistan.
So I was born in Pakistan, in Rawalpindi, and I came to the UK in 1965. I came with my parents and my 5 siblings. I'm the youngest of 6. We came here because of my father's job. My father used to work for the government, and he came to this country as part of his civil service role. I remember asking my dad many years later as to, what really brought you here apart from work? What were the reasons? And he said, I wanted my sons to have an education, and I had a choice of either taking them to America or bringing you all to England. And I chose England because it's got a fantastic education system. So I said to him, well, look, why did you stay once the boys had their education? And his answer was very simple. He said, why shouldn't my daughters have had the same opportunities?
Hifsa left school after her A-levels, deciding that going to university wasn't for her. She worked as a school lab technician before getting married.
After getting married, we moved around the country because of my husband's work. I worked with organisations that were working with patients with HIV and AIDS and working with cancer patients. And it was when I was working with a cancer charity that I started to do the research that finally led to me having published papers in an international journal, in a nursing book. And it was this research that when I applied for a job at one of the universities after a few years, the professor sort of looked at my CV and wondered why I hadn't got a first degree when I'd got all this published research. And she offered me the job on condition that I did an MPhil for somebody who hadn't even got a first degree. That in itself was quite an achievement.
Hifsa's work with the university and her master's degree has enabled her to publish more work and led her to her most recent work in a very different environment.
I've worked in lots of different areas. I've worked in health organisations, I've worked in equality and diversity for a number of years. For the last 8 years, I've been working as a civil servant, specifically in counter-extremism. And that job has allowed me to work with post-16 education providers, with colleges, with universities, and independent education providers. Education doesn't just take place in colleges and universities and schools. We have, training providers, apprenticeship providers.
Not content with her career, studying later in life and raising a family, Hifsa is also a Deputy Lieutenant in Staffordshire.
I am a deputy to Her Majesty's Lord Lieutenant. In all of the counties across the country, Her Majesty the Queen, who can't be everywhere with her job, has people who represent her. So when the Queen receives an invitation or the Lord Lieutenant receives an invitation to go and speak at various events, open different events, if he can't go, then he will invite his deputy lieutenants to go along. So I've done some amazing stuff representing the Lord Lieutenant and I suppose Her Majesty the Queen.
Recently, Hifsa also took a bit of a leap of faith in aid of one of her favourite charities.
So I started supporting Oxfam way back in 2010, and a few years ago I decided that I was going to continue my support for them, but also fulfil an ambition of mine, which was to jump out of an aeroplane with a parachute. So I managed to convince my husband and my family, who were very, very wary of the idea that I was going to do that. We raised £6,500 by me jumping out of an aeroplane. But it was the most amazing experience when you sort of fall out of this aeroplane and you see those clouds and you actually fall through those clouds.
Hifsa is involved with a number of charities, one that educates girls in Pakistan being especially close to her heart.
So the Citizen Foundation is a charity that I got involved in a few years ago, and they basically build schools in the slum parts of Pakistan. The schools are mainly aimed at females, because we know that there are issues around getting young girls to go to school. So these schools are amazing. The teachers are all female. A lot of the teachers are actually alumni, so they've been through the same schools themselves. I visited one of the schools in Karachi when I was in Pakistan last year, and the school building is amazing. The work that they are doing, the curriculum that they're following. Right outside of the school gates is an open sewer, and you can see the types of communities that the Citizen Foundation is trying to support.
During lockdown, Hifsa has also fulfilled another ambition and combined her love of cooking with raising money for charity.
So the idea for the cookery book, Lunch and Lockdown, came about over lockdown when we found ourselves stuck at home with nothing much to do other than cooking and eating and working from home. And I contacted a number of my friends who had been putting pictures of foods they were cooking on social media and asked them if they wanted to contribute a recipe or two to a book that was being produced with all proceeds going to charity. And we produced a book which has got over 50 recipes in, from starters all the way through to desserts. And we printed 120 of these books out, which were all sold within 2 weeks. And we raised nearly £1,200 for my charities.
Hifsa was awarded an MBE in 2012, and her commitment to helping others get an education was also rewarded recently with 2 new roles.
So I've recently been appointed as a governor at Keele University and at Westminster Academy in London. And these 2 posts are particularly important to me because I didn't go down the traditional route of going to university at 18. I got my master's many years later. I went down a very different route. But ultimately, education is what can open doors. And I'm a firm believer that if I can do it, anybody can do it. And everybody should have that opportunity in life to get the education that they want when they want it.